Hi there, everyone. I'm April Stearns. I am the founder, the editor, the writing instructor, the some of the magic behind Wildfire magazine, and I'm here today to talk about an issue we have coming up in the beginning of the year. This is our first ever hair stories issue. And so I'm going to be chatting today about that theme, and I'm going to talk about how you might get involved with this theme if you would like to submit your story. And there is my lovely co-host. Hi,
Hi,
Sonia. How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm going to see if I can adjust this. I kind of like disappeared on the screen. There we go. Hi. So, would you like to introduce yourself to the folks who are watching?
Sure, I'd love to. So I'm Sonia Keshwani. I'm a young breast cancer survivor and the founder of StyleEsteem. I'm wearing one of our beautiful designs on my head today because I'm feeling festive and I'm feeling like celebrating my story and all of your stories because that's what we do through fashion at StyleEsteem. And I guess we'll sort of talk a little bit more about it throughout our live, but my connection to this issue is that I had a transformative experience through my own hair journey when I lost my hair to chemotherapy at age 29, and I found myself sort of back at square one with not just my physical look, but also my identity and my style, and all sorts of other things. Overall, my relationship with myself was starting from scratch again. And just finding my way back to myself through my hair, even when I didn't have it, was such an empowering experience for me. And I really hope that we all can kind of come together and find empowerment in this phase because I think, we're taught by society that this is something maybe to ignore or maybe to brush under the rug and move on to more important issues. But I do think that it's such an important thing for all of us. And also, there's so much inspiration and empowerment to find in this journey. And I hope our issue can do that for this community.
Oh, I know that it is going to, for sure. I am so grateful that you came to me about this theme because it's kind of surprising that in over 50 issues of Wildfire, we have yet to devote an entire issue to hair stories. And I maybe that means that I'm a little bit part of the problem. Like you just said, there is this thing about maybe hair is kind of frivolous in the whole cancer story, or you think that maybe going in, or people who haven't had that experience. That's definitely not been my experience, and so I'm really glad that we're going to shine a spotlight on the hair stories. And one of the things I love about Wildfire is we help people go deeper into the story. So it's not just that your hair was affected, or you lost your hair, or you had to regrow hair that maybe was different. It's like, how does that impact who you are, your identity, how you move in the world? How is that part of this bigger story that is you and your life? And so I loved when you and I were talking about this theme, Sonia. Like, we were really talking about this idea of kind of the before, the middle, the after. Like, it's an evolution of a story. Do you care to share a little bit about your personal hair story?
Yeah, sure. So when I was diagnosed at age 29, I was diagnosed with an early stage triple positive breast cancer, and I started treatment immediately, and I kind of didn't have a chance to really stop and think about too much that didn't involve decision making, right? And hair was one of those things. It was out of my hands in a way. I just knew that my hair would fall out. I was told to buy a wig and just kind of be prepared when it happens. And that's what I did. I just started my first round of treatment, did my wig shopping, and I had it shipped to me, and I was kind of ready for it. And what I didn't realize that it's so much more than your hair just falling out of your scalp. It's kind of starts right when you learn that you'll need chemotherapy and that you may potentially have hair loss. And so that was already subconsciously happening to me, where I was sort of, even if it was a repressed thought that was happening, it was there. This sort of fear of the unknown, this uncertainty about what will I look like, what will others think of me, will I be able to accept this, and so on.
Yeah.
And so that's how it kind of started. And I bought this blonde wig with roots, and it kind of looked like it was my hair, and like I just had, gotten a color job at a salon, and it kind of worked for a bit. And I then during the treatment of it all, I started to realize this doesn't feel like myself. I feel like I don't look like myself. The wig is not helping me look like more of myself. And on top of that,
Mm.
I'm going through side effects. I'm going through, bruising. I'm going through like really sensitive
Yeah.
skin. And this is really uncomfortable, and the wig is not necessarily making that better. So, is there maybe other stuff that I can do? Are there little tools and tips and tricks that I can use at home to soothe myself? And is there a better solution for covering my head? And so that kind of led me to this whole journey of self discovery through fashion, where I just started sort of looking online for head coverings and realizing that, like, when you're a well woman, you have all these options that are available to you, and then when you're diagnosed, all of a sudden you have a very slim rack of options in the store,
Yeah.
that are catered to you and what you're going through. And so, realizing I'm going from like a wig to a chemo beanie didn't necessarily make me feel like I had won the lottery by any means. And so I started to look for more fashionable options, but I couldn't find anything that felt like it inspired me. And I felt like if at any point I needed to be inspired in my life, it was during cancer. I needed to feel inspired and hopeful and feel like, okay, I've got this, and I'm the best parts of whatever I have left of me.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started to think about. And I was like, well, if the solution doesn't exist, I might as well try to create it myself. I can't possibly do any worse than what's out there. And so that's when I started going to a fabric shop next to my infusion center, and I started to just buy a few yards of fabric each time I went for treatment. And when I would come home and I would be recovering for a week each time, I would just experiment with my mom's sewing machine. And this went on for a whole year because I was in treatment for a whole year. So in the throes of the different phases of the hair journey, from hair loss to total baldness to regrowth, I had my sewing machine and I had my fabrics, and I kind of was writing my story in fabric as I went along. And
Mm.
so that really is something that helped me express parts of my hair journey even when I didn't have the hair. And I kind of want to let people know that, just because you don't have hair, it doesn't mean that there isn't a story to tell or personality to express. I think we always have that in us. And sometimes, unfortunately, hair is a temporary thing. It sometimes goes away and it comes back, and we have to kind of figure out how to find ourselves in that in between space. But that's what these things are for, things that we create ourselves, like a headpiece or community or a magazine issue. And so
Yeah.
that's really been something that I've learned, is that, like, you can create that healing, you can create that identity, because that's what it is. At the end of the day, it's a construct, right? So
Yeah.
that's something that I learned like partway through my hair journey. And then, going on into, when the hair starts to come back and it starts to grow back, and wanting to sort of express your joy and your pride in what you've gone through, and how you've stuck it out, and the fact that you can tell that story now is something that I continue to put into my fashion and into the designs that we put out. But yeah, it's not even, it's certainly not just the hair falling out, and it's certainly not just it growing back. It's starts when you learn that you'll need the treatment. It's everything that you go through, the loss of identity and the rebuilding of the self during treatment. And it's also getting to know the new you once your hair is growing back, right? Because it's such small phases, and it can last, months and years.
Yeah.
And I think people don't realize that. It's like, I used to always tell myself, like, every time I went through a physical change that changed how I saw myself in the mirror, to the point of not being able to recognize myself, it was a devastating process at first, but I had to sort of reframe it in my mind. I taught myself to think that, you have the privilege of meeting a new version of yourself each time you look in the mirror. How amazing is that? This version is better than the last one, and the next one will be even better. And that's just kind of how I had to think about it. And so that was really like the physical transformation of the hair journey, but also my mental transformation and how I chose to look at myself. And those things still are useful because you still are going through it. Even 6 years later, like
Right.
me,
Yeah.
you still have your moments and ups and downs, and it helps to, have that grace and
Yeah.
kindness towards yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Oh, I really resonate with a lot of what you just said. Thank you for sharing that. You kind of got me thinking too about the varied experiences of hair through a cancer story. I'm thinking about how, um, you know, like you said, it's kind of a story that kind of starts the minute you're diagnosed. And I think that it's in a way one of the hallmarks of kind of losing some control because it's something that is harder to
Yeah,
cover up. You can
yeah,
wear wigs, like you said, and certain things, but the fact that you're going to lose your eyebrows, the fact that you're going to lose your eyelashes, like it is hard to maintain the facade of everything is fine. And so for me, the hair kind of starts to represent that slipping of control and that you might have to ask for help or you might have to admit that something isn't normal. And then on the flip side of that, we have people in our community who don't have hair killing chemo.
yeah,
And so then you can get stuck with a kind of a little bit of an imposter syndrome. Like, how do I fit in the cancer community if I don't look like what society thinks is a cancer patient, and so it's like so many different aspects to it. And it makes me also think about how, in a way, for me, see if you agree with this, but for me, I think going through a cancer experience was so reminiscent of going through puberty.
yeah,
The hormone changes and the menopause was like, a reverse kind of puberty, but also with the hair stuff, because for me personally, my hair really changed when I went through puberty. And then it changed when I went through pregnancy, which I was fortunate to have that opportunity. And then right after that, I went through a cancer experience and my hair changed again and it's continuing to change. And I think that that's, as the hormones continue to settle out. But has it felt like that to you too? Like puberty again?
yeah. I'll do you even better. And this is not something that I thought up of, but something that my mom said to me, and it just was like a light bulb moment. She was like, "It's like you're a baby again," because with the bald head,
Yeah.
and with the amount of care that I needed and the way that my parents looked after me, they basically were like, we get to look after you again like you're a baby, but we know so much more now. And
Yeah.
that's the bald head kind of triggered that comment, and I kind of agree with that. It's like we're starting from this very like stage of infancy and fragility, but also at the same time, it's like it's not totally from scratch, right? It's like this push and pull that we're sort of going between, especially if you're someone who has had any kind of hormone related treatments like I have. You constantly feel like you're in a different age group, like every other day, like based on this side effect or whatever you're going through. So yeah, I think it can be a
Exactly.
little bit of both. I think it can be, yeah. It's very tricky.
It is. And I really like what you just said about that vulnerability piece because I think that when big things happen to us, big traumas happen to us, we do, whether we want it or not, we do get reduced to kind of a simpler version of ourselves, a more, well, just very vulnerable version of ourselves. And, as many people as fight that, I think ultimately there is going to be a reckoning at some point, especially with a cancer experience. And the hair part can really illustrate that, I think, for sure. And I just really love too that you had your mom with you through this. I know that's not necessarily the case for everyone, but what was your mom's role through your cancer and today even?
Yeah, both of my parents, my mother and my father, were really there for me the whole time. I was actually living and working full time in Washington, D.C., but I decided to get treated in New York City because my parents are in New York and I have a very young sister. And so I knew they wouldn't be able to travel. So I found myself going back and forth every 3 weeks, and I actually chose to do that because I love my hometown. I love the energy and the life in the air of New York. And so I was like, you know what? Let me go back. Let me do my treatment, and I'll travel and I'll work, and that'll be fine. But while I was in treatment, whether I was in New York or DC, my parents played such an active role. Whether it was like, taking me for my wig fittings or taking me to get my head shaved, or just like, the little things, like if I'm recovering and I have a moment where I'm awake and I can say like, okay, well, I'm good to spend time together. My mom would heat up a little bit of coconut oil and give me a scalp
Oh,
massage, which is like a tradition in Indian culture to do
oh,
that. My father would always be there for me, giving me little back rubs and like making sure that I'm okay. But it's these little things that we kind of decided to carry through each of the days, whether it was like just being there for each other or little bits of our tradition and culture that helped us kind of find that grounding and knowing that, okay, we're carrying on in a way where we're together, we have that strength and unity with each other. We're praying over each other, we're caring for each other. I think that was something that they were really actively involved, and I was very blessed to have that. And especially in the treatment room, of course, like, I mean, I didn't even
yeah.
mention it because it's like I didn't even have to think about it. They were always there, and I was really, really fortunate for that. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love that tiny little gesture. I mean, it's a huge gesture actually, but just the coconut oil on your
Yeah.
scalp. I mean, it's so loving. But I also love that you shared that that's
Yeah.
culturally, part of your story, and that part of there being like a cultural aspect to hair stories, I think is really important too, because for some people, it might not be at all comfortable to be out in the world, in their community, whatever it is, bald. And so there's going to be certain things that they feel like they need to put on their heads to feel more comfortable. Um, I think there's also family stories around hair as well. I know in my family growing up, it was just kind of a given that the girls would have long hair and we didn't cut our hair. And
Yeah.
so I didn't really have any say in my hair for like, a really, really long time.
Yeah.
And so for me, almost like my cancery hair story is also marks a moment in time when I decided what I wanted my new hair to look like. And I've kept my hair short all these years. I'm 12 years out now
Yeah.
from my cancer, losing my hair. And it was an interesting moment for me to be like, okay, what do I want the aftermath to look like? What
Yeah.
what does this look like? But I will also say there's another aspect to my hair story where this goes back to that, like kind of trying to control chaos, trying to control something in an out of control situation. Um, so my daughter was really little when I was diagnosed, and or maybe you know this or you don't know this, but baby's hair can grow quite long and pretty fast, and it can be pretty unruly. And I remember in the months following my diagnosis, as my hair's falling out, I ended up giving her a haircut. And I've never given her a haircut since.
Oh.
But I ended up just wanting to like kind of tame, I think, her hair a little bit. And it was interesting that I put that on her because
Yeah.
I think it really was just a manifestation of me feeling out of control with my own hair.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That must
all of this is to
have
say,
been.
oh,
Yeah,
go
that
ahead.
must.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
no, I was just gonna say that must have been such an interesting experience to have that be parallel to your own hair
Oh,
journey of like
yeah.
going through the hair loss. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, that's another aspect of our communities and our personal communities try to support us. I know people will shave their head in solidarity, and some people really appreciate that, and other people don't because if you choose to shave your head, then your hair is going to grow back pretty quick, as opposed
Yeah.
to being in chemo for 5-6 months or
Yeah.
more. And I have yet to hear a story where someone was willing to continue to shave their head for six
Yeah.
months. But maybe that story is out there. But did you have that, or what's your feeling around that? Like just
Yeah.
the symbolism there.
Yeah. I was listening to you and I just couldn't help but think like this thing that feels like a loss of control can often end up giving us back the ability to make choices that we didn't know we had, like
Hmm.
wearing your hair short. I mean, I see so many beautiful breasties and cancer survivors who just have the most incredible haircuts and hairdos that I think, even myself, I'm like, that's so unique and daring to wear your hair like that. Even yourself, it's your signature thing, but I'm just like, wow, it's such a beautiful calling card in a way. And I do think that's such a big part of like it's a thread that I think goes through our entire lifestyle is that it teaches you to just take chances on yourself. And I think
Yeah.
hair is one of those things that it becomes less of like what you're going through in life, because I think women, especially, we're taught like, I mean, not we're taught, but we often see in like pop culture, oh, she's like done something to her hair. Maybe she's like going through a breakup, or she's like having a
Mhm.
hard time, or something negative is happening. And I think we realize like actually this is a canvas for me to express myself and to kind of do whatever I want. It's my hair. I've earned it. It's my choice. And
Yeah.
for me personally, I always had like really long and thick curly hair. I never wore anything on my head because I just had such like luscious hair that if I wore anything, I would get like hat
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah.
And when I went through my hair loss, it was the first time that I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm at a point where I have to see this as an option. And, wearing different things on my head, I just kind of found myself feeling like I have this crown on my head that was always missing. And so when I got my hair
Mhm.
back, I still kind of incorporated those little things, those little accents into my hair, because I felt like it's just a badge of honor for me.
Yeah.
So whether it's like a special haircut or special accessories, I just think that it's all such a beautiful choice that we're able to make. And you're right, it is like a bald head is kind of like I call it like a universal symbol of the cancer patient. And
Mhm.
if you're especially trying to be discreet about what you're going through, it's really hard once your hair starts to fall out. But I think being on the other side of that hair loss and realizing you can kind of, write your story through the choices that you make, I think is a really beautiful thing.
Mhm. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, as you were talking, I was thinking about, when I was going through my cancer experience, I really resonated with the phrase, like, it was never just hair.
Yeah,
Like, it's so much more than that. It
yeah,
represents so much more. And now, as a parent to a teenager who is experimenting with her look, experimenting with her hair and her makeup, I have this like really freeing feeling around it of like, it's just hair. Like hair
yeah,
comes and goes and it's your choice, your freedom of expression. Like I would never want her to feel like she couldn't just experiment because it is going to grow back. She's not sick or anything like
yeah.
that. So I love that my cancer experience kind of gave me that perspective that it's okay. It's going to grow back. We can change it around. Of course, my eyebrows have never been the same
Yeah.
after losing them to chemo. So certain things will not
Yeah,
always
I
grow
find
back.
that
But
the hair grows around the eyebrow, but not on the eyebrow, which is increasingly frustrating for me. But that's an entirely different IG life.
totally,
Yeah.
totally. Although in our hair issue, I should say, for those of you watching, like we'll take all the hair stories. So maybe you have eyebrow stories, maybe you have hair of,
Sure.
other experiences. I was delightfully thrilled to realize that my radiated side, that armpit, wasn't going to grow hair back for a long time, and I still don't even really need deodorant on that side. Like so little hidden like, silver
Yeah.
linings are wonderful.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so much like those silver linings, and then like little humorous sort of experiences. Like for me, one of the big like WTF moments of my hair experience was just like one day I'm just like taking the bus to work in DC, to my job in media in the government, and I'm traveling with my wig in a Ziploc bag in my purse and a scarf on my head, and I just look into my bag and I'm like, wouldn't it be hilarious if like my purse just like got knocked over and the wig went like flying out onto the bus and it like freaked out everyone. And I just was like thinking about like funny little stories about my wig or my bald head and like different little things, and it's such a bizarre thing, but I also feel like it's such a, you're at the ends of reality when you kind of hit that hair loss stage, and it just teaches you kind of like the depths of what you're capable of and what you can go through for yourself. And I think like the
Exactly.
bald head is a symbol of that. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love that story. I think that we need the humor
Yeah.
wherever we can find it. I remember when I was getting fitted for a wig that I didn't end up personally wearing, which is, another just, going through it and kind of figuring out for me personally what I needed. But I remember when I was getting fitted for the wig, the woman at the shop advised me not to yank it off like in traffic or while I was driving because I would give other drivers like a heart attack if they just saw me yank my hair off. So yeah, you have to find the funny
I wonder
moments wherever you
why
can.
she said that. Like, she must have heard a story about someone going through that and causing like a 10-car pileup or something. I don't know. So it's like a little wig
Exactly.
disclaimer.
It was
Oh,
funny, because what I ended up ultimately taking away from that story was how hot a wig can be, which is
yeah.
just something you don't know, when you've never worn one before. Or I was like you, I had such big curly hair, I never wore hats even because of the hat head thing and all of that. So I just didn't have any frame of reference for
Yeah.
how warm that can be. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I started treatment in May actually, in DC, which is like really, really hot and humid, during the
Yeah.
summer. So I quickly realized like I need options. Like I can wear the wig sometimes, but I definitely need to be able to swap in and out. I need to be able to like be free when I want. Like it's important to know your options, I think. It's not one
Exactly.
solution
Exactly.
for
No,
everything.
it's not. Well, I'm really excited about this issue. And so I'm hoping that we've inspired some people to tell their hair stories. So, those of you watching, thinking about submitting, you can submit all the way up until December 31st, or actually, I should probably say 30th. I think it's the
Yeah.
30th
We
that we
did
have
say
the
30th.
deadline on.
Yeah.
Yeah, 30th. So get it done before New Year's celebrating, but we have extended it a little bit. I usually have the 25th of the month is the deadline, but this month we have it till the 30th. We accept essays, poetry, and artwork with an artist statement. You can submit those through the Wildfire website. That's wildfirecommunity.org/submissions. And if you go to that page, you'll get tips for writing your story. You'll get writing prompts to kind of help you get that entry point on the page. You can read past stories that have been written on hair, including Sonia's story from our Identity and Aftermath issue a couple years ago. Am I forgetting anything else? What else do we want to say?
No, I just think like, dig deep and dig personal. Tell us what hair means to you. I mean, there are the prompts on the website, but anything you heard us talk about is also fair game. I mean, we want to hear how hair was, a factor within your culture, within your family, within your traditions. I mean, there's so
Yeah,
much there. Like, if you feel like you had an experience and you're like, gee, I wonder if others went through something like this, or I haven't heard anyone else talk about this. That's a great sign that that's a good thing to write about, because this is all
yeah,
about finding that commonality within an experience that we all go through but don't often get the spotlight on. And so I really want to hear, your personal experience and your unique story. We want to hear it.
yeah. Exactly. And I love what you just said about, if there was a story out there you didn't hear, but you needed to hear, then that's obviously the one that needs to be written. And it is about like telling cancer stories in a different
Yeah.
way. Like don't focus just on your diagnosis, your treatment, and the hair loss. Like go past that, like to the living with that. Like what were the lessons learned? How are you different now from this experience? Whether that's for the better or maybe for the worse. We'll take all the stories. We want all the stories. And thank you for putting that fine point on the cultural stories, the family stories, like, all of that is what makes a rich, really good cancer story.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Can't wait to read them. Well, Sonia, thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been really fun chatting with you.
Likewise, it's always a treat.
All right. Have a good rest of your
Bye
day.
bye.
Bye.